All right, everybody, welcome to episode 209 at Percussion Podcast. Today is Sunday, December 15th. With me, as always, are Casey Cangelosi.
Hey, Ben.
And Ksenia.
Hey.
Ksenia, I think you have a new purchase in your life right now. Something very exciting.
Oh, I do. I was for a second thinking about the calendar. No, it's I have a new marimba finally, my first one. I got my own marimba one, and I'm really happy. And I get to just bury myself in my office and practice all day.
Congrats!
Which is great.
Yeah, it's
Thank you.
Very cool to have your own instrument to kind of like always get to practice with a consistent sound and everything. It's nice.
Yeah.
Well, just a quick one little piece of information before we get started today. Actually, a sad bit of news. We just wanted to share that Emil Richards has passed away at the age of 87. We spoke with Emil Richards 2 years ago on, I have the episode number, give me 1 second here. I think it was we spoke with Emil Richards on episode 82. That's what it was, 2 years ago. Emil Richards, of course, is the famous percussionist that has all sorts of film credits dating back to the original Planet of the Apes. He was Frank Sinatra's vibraphone player. He was the Beach Boys, George Harrison, Frank Zappa, worked with Harry Parch. He's a PAS Hall of Fame member and just really an absolute legend in our field. So we were sad to hear of Emil's passing, but happy that we got some time with him. I got to meet him actually for the first time in 2009. And Casey, I think you also worked with him, didn't you?
I didn't really work with him, but I've met him before.
Yeah, was that at ZMF?
One more time, sorry?
Was that at ZMF?
Was he at ZMF when I was there? If he was, I did not have a lesson with him. I don't think he was there when I was there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I do have this great happy memory of him at PASIC performing a concert with one of his students, and his student was, very serious and professional at the vibraphone playing 4 mallets, and Emil would go grab the mallets out of his hand and like shove him out of the way, and I mean just like entertaining as all get out,
Yeah, I remember when I saw him perform when I was at UNT, they played their first number and he said, well, I'd like to introduce the band. And then he turned and introduced all the band members to each other instead of to the audience.
Right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because on that line of humor, I don't know if you all know this book. I'm holding it up if you're watching on YouTube, but it's his catalog of collected instruments. It's not up to date. I mean, it's an older book, but it's called Emil Richards' World of Percussion. And there is his biography, which I think is called Emil's World of Percussion, my percussion behind bars, which is like a actual biography. But this is just a catalog and a description of a lot of standard instruments. So it's got a lot of practical value, but also some of his unique instruments. And speaking of your little humorous story, he has these what he calls key tree, which are key chimes right here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. But, like all the instruments, he describes them, and this is a set he built, and he says 100 brass keys mounted and strung together. They produce a very nice pitch wind chime sound when shook. Note, they can be played in any key.
Fun.
But that's like in the book. That's cool, Like that's way cool. It's in the book. There's this little joke built in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I tell you a few things about Emil Richards that I bet, Ben, you reported on, but maybe some people might not know?
Yeah, sure.
So he began playing xylophone at age 6, and by his account, it's by accident. Apparently, his father is taking he and his older brother to a music shop. His brother's 9 years old at the time, and Emil is 6. And I guess the 9-year-old older brother is going to purchase a recording, the father, of course, is going to purchase an accordion for him. And Emilio cried so much and said he wanted something as well. And his father said, what do you want? And Emil Richards pointed to the first instrument he could see, which happened to be the xylophone. So they paid $60 for a real xylophone in 1938 and got 6 months worth of lessons along with it. He also happened to grow up in the same neighborhood as the very famous drummer Joe Porcaro. And as Ben certainly reported on, he served 2 years in Japan as an assistant band leader in the 1st Cavalry Army Band. And let's see. Yeah, that's good. So anyway, a couple fun things I just dove to find before we started about Emil Richards.
Yeah, so if you want more, like Casey said, he does have that biography, My Life Behind Bars, on episode 5 with Tom Sherwood. I actually did an Emil Richards segment. And like I said, episode 82 was his episode. So, but anyway, moving along, our guest for today is percussionist Alexandre Esperet. Alexandre is a versatile percussionist, having won the Trump percussion competition as well as the 2008 Cannes marimba competition. He's performed internationally as a soloist and with ensembles including Ensemble Contemporain, So Percussion, and his very own SR9 trio, who do a lot of theatrical percussion pieces that I absolutely adore. So welcome to the podcast, Alexandre.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, so good to have you with us here. So I had the privilege a few months ago of performing, I'm not going to attempt the French title with you here, but your ball piece.
Ceci n'est pas une balle.
Yeah, there we go. And I think you actually performed that, the solo version, in the finals of the Trump competition, which is, no pun intended, but a ballsy move. So could you tell us about creating that piece and what went through your mind? And yeah.
When we wrote the piece, you mean?
Yeah.
So actually, we wrote it for a young audience show. So it was not really meant to be in the repertoire. It was just like fun stuff that we were doing in the show. And by that time we created the show, I did the Luxembourgish competition with my trio, and 6 months after the Trump competition, and in both finals we thought it would be like funny to have that kind of encore added to the rest of the program. So we just played what was compulsory to play, and then we thought, okay, let's just do it like a fun stuff in the end. And so we went to the final with the trio, and I went to the final with the solo at Trump, and so I played it, and everyone wanted to play it after. So I write it down with my friend, and yeah, so that's basically how we came out with it.
Gotcha. And then I saw you perform. My actually first experience was seeing you perform it at PASIC. Was it, you said 2 years ago?
Oh yeah, we did it with the trio 2 years ago. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then there was also, in addition to the body percussion in that piece, I noticed your trio does a lot of body percussion in general, it seems. Is that just something you were interested in, or was that is there some sort of story behind that?
Yeah, we like body percussion because it's actually we love to do with different arts, to play percussion with different arts, and movements especially, or theatrical. And when you have a real instrument, then it's a kind of a bit tricky to do. And when you have no instruments, then the moves comes naturally, and actually the body percussion is really related to the moves. So it was kind of easy for us to do this. But regarding the ball piece, actually we tried at first with a ball, not with a, but then it was very much too difficult for us, because we're not basketball player or whatever, or football soccer player, and also it's just not interesting if you, well, it makes a little bit like a stomp, you know, kind of stuff, but it's not that interesting. Though if it's unreal, then you can make it whatever you want, and then it's more poetic or more whatever. You can make jokes, you can turn it into whatever, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this piece actually a few episodes ago with, I think, Cameron Leach. But if you're unfamiliar with the piece, the gimmick is the whole piece. At the end of the piece, you have a foam ball in your pocket, and actually I have my foam ball right here. And at the end of the piece, you magically make the foam ball appear. And I have to confess, I was actually, if you look at my recording on YouTube, I was too lazy to learn the last little section of it. So my two trio mates do it, and meanwhile I'm searching up in the air for where my ball went, and then I pull it out of my mouth. So.
Okay, so you keep it in your mouth for the whole piece?
No, just at the end. I have it in my pocket, and I turn around and I kind of look like this and slip it into my mouth. So yeah, but a lot of people ask, so did you have that in your mouth the whole time?
I have a follow-up question, and it's from our friend Luca from France. He also asked about the origin of your body percussion interest, but then he said, He asked, do you intend to continue this in your research or in your commissions, in your future composing or, interacting with composers? And what could be truly innovative in the field of body percussion? What do you think?
I don't know what can be actually just body percussion. It's kind of you can make different stuff that people probably didn't do. Try some different playing modes, like to scratch or to instead of eating everywhere. But then it's not. You can't go too far. It's not like a huge instruments, or so that's why we basically more mix it with theatrical stuff, so we kind of have more space to innovate or to find. I don't know if we innovate anything, but just to find stuff different. Yeah, actually, to come back with the bow piece, because everyone thinks it's very innovative and everything, but it's not at all. The only thing we did innovate is that we took this piece and put it in the classical event. But every mime people, just the first lesson is the glass and the second lesson is the bow. So everyone is making that, and we just added a bit of body percussion, but there's no innovation in it. It's just like we took it in a show area to put it in the music area, and then everyone was like, "Oh, it's very new," but it's not new at all. So yeah.
Casey, really quick, this might be a kind of an off-the-wall question, but I feel like, Casey, I remember you saying many episodes ago that you had experimented with like contact mics, like on your heartbeat or something like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Speaking
Like,
of body,
didn't work out.
it's really hard. I still want to do it, but I think I just need to experiment more. But yeah, I had this idea for a body percussion piece with contact mics all over your body, and if you could somehow make it where your heartbeat gave a pulse, that would be really cool. So your heart, I don't think you can do it. It's just not
practically.
It's not sensitive enough. You would have to like surgically implant a microphone into your.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think we should do it. You said off the wall.
He said, Alexandre said his piece isn't innovative. That's innovative. That's do it.
Innovative.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, I think, of course, I totally agree with what Alexandre's saying. I mean, yeah, right. It is just like theater type things, pantomiming and miming and that. But what is so impressive is the timing. I mean, watching this piece, it does take a lot of musical skill to, pause, bam, catch the ball, and the tape is just going, the tape is not listening to you at all. The only thing to keep you with the tape is your sense of time. And that's hard. So, I mean, I think, more credit to you, I guess.
It is awkward when you go to kick the soccer ball and nothing happens. And then a second later, the soccer ball gets kicked.
Yeah. How do you play that one off, Ben?
Well, that was my student. But what we did is like at the last, whatever the cue was, we just sang Stars and Stripes Forever in our head for, 6 beats or whatever. So we would hear the sound and then bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, kick.
Yeah. Kick. Yeah.
Okay. That's funny. We never thought of it musically, like where, especially when the time is very long, then it's how you make theatrical stuff that makes you right on the good time. So you can improvise sometime, but if you improvise something, then you have to shorter or longer the time, because otherwise it's. But we don't count anything. It's just like we know we can have the time to look there, and then again there, and then it will come or whatever. But it's more theatrical than musical the way we count it.
Yeah, you're probably a lot more intimately familiar with that piece than most.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, I had a sort of follow-up question to this. I think a lot of percussionists' introduction to theatrical percussion is Thierry de Mey and table music and Silence Must Be. And certainly that was my introduction. And you've worked with Thierry de Mey, correct?
Yeah, actually, I'm also a member of the Percussion Strasbourg ensemble. And we just did a project with him in September this year. So we had Yeah, we had
he's sort of like a mysterious figure to a lot of us because like when I've gone to do research on him, like I can't find like a website, I can't find like I just know he has these works and Casey's communicated with him and gotten the score for the Silence Must Be. So could you tell us about him and like certainly the ensemble working with him?
Yeah, so actually he was a musician kind of. Like he would play bass in a rock band or stuff in the 80s, and he was in Brussels. So in I don't know how you say it, in a collective of people with a choreographer, a musician, composer, and actually very famous. All of them became very famous afterward, like Van de Keibus, Wim van de Keibus. I don't know. Yeah, Kersmaker and Teresa Kersmaker. Well, there was many people with him, and then he built. He wrote music for them and worked along with them for pieces. With his sister was there also, Michel de Mey, which is making. You can see her in some movies. There's a movie with Jared Leto.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. She's choreographing and she's making only finger moves, you know, dance.
Uh-huh.
And so that's actually all this influence that got him together with and he's also a filmmaker, kind of famous. He did the movies for Anne-Theresa Kersmaker or the choreographer, and so yeah, is all this made him influence to write either really musical stuff, like where there is some pieces with clarinets, with whatever, just an ensemble, music ensemble, and there is pieces with just gesture that really comes out from the work he did with Van de Keibus and everything. Yeah, and he's still living in Brussels. He's a very nice guy. You should meet him.
Are you familiar with a band called Gojira?
Gojira?
Yeah.
Not familiar, but I know, yeah.
Oh, it's like the one French metal band that's like really just
famous?
Doing great out there. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I know Gojira and like Debussy. That's it.
Okay. Ravel.
Well, and Thierry de Mey.
Yeah. Okay.
Ravel. Yeah, Casey's never heard of Ravel. No.
Oh, right. There's that one too. That's right. Got to edit some of that out. Hey, well, how about a question from our buddy Brian Bloom via Facebook? He says, having been around the world and worked with many artists from different cultures, can you talk about some differences in performance approaches from country to country or continent to continent?
Well, I think, yeah, it's the way you play is the way you are, and there is so many cultural difference in between the countries and continent, of course, but even sometimes country, that definitely you can feel someone comes from Spain or France or Germany, and so that's actually very small area already. So if you take a Japanese and then an American, of course there's a huge difference. But I think it's very. Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. What are they like in Serbia? Do we know? Does anybody know? Ksenia's from Serbia.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, it's just I think the temper of the people and the cultural stuff just comes out in their playing. So I don't know, like, Spanish people are very hot in their temper, you know, like, I don't know, you say hot, like,
yeah, passionate,
proud, yeah, passionate, and so you can really feel that in the way they play, and if you take a German people, for example, they are more. It's general statement. It's not everyone, but they're more right and not square, but you know what is on time should be on time and
precise.
Yeah, precise and everything. So you can feel that in the playing also, and actually it's just a matter of like afterward, because you can see someone that you really love, and though he's not playing the notes because it's just like lots of energy, but then yeah, it's just a matter of liking.
So wait, you've been you've been to North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you've seen a lot. So first of all, can you describe what French performers are like compared to others, if we're stereotyping? And then
If I could interject real quick, I was just going to say, when I saw Alexandre perform at PASIC a couple of years ago, all I could think the whole time was like, wow, these guys are so French. Everything about the performance was just so French. And I mean that in the best way. I was just so elegant, and just such a like attention to detail of touch and like musicality, and like, yeah, I mean, like, and being an American, and I would put Americans more in line with the Germans of like marching band precision and all, and seeing these guys that are perfectly precise but also seem completely unconcerned with precision, it was just like mind blowing.
Well,
That's
what
funny.
you just said about the span of rest in the It's a Little Ball piece, it's like you're counting, a specific tempo, and Alexander's just saying like, no, you time it with the theater of it, it's a very different approach.
Yeah, but I think you're better to say how French people play, because we think we play the way it should be played, but we don't judge the other like no, you have to play it like this. So I think you're the one who could say how the French are playing, but it's kind of funny because it's we had this discussion with some friends actually, the difference in between being careful of not being racist and taking care of the cultural difference, because you can say, well, the Japanese, they're so very tight and respectful, and everything should be and you can say the African people are just playing the rhythm in the way to consider the cultural stuff, and not the country itself, or the where they originally come from. Like I've seen many Asian people from America, and they play really like American, and it's just
Yeah. Well, and it's a generalization about style, but it's not a criticism. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
So I think in that way, I feel like we should be very comfortable to speak freely, like you said,
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the most effective way is I've had is with my friend Erica Daimo and my arch enemy Pius Chang, but we would talk about well, they specifically, I think they sort of taught me this mode of talking about performance, but it was performance auras and just simply colors. Like they have a very specific idea of what Ben's performance aura would be, and they usually agree. It's a very like codified, specific thing. It's not very opinionated, is what's cool about it, I think.
Wow, that's really cool. Okay, so I had another question, and that's Alexandre, you studied with Jean Geoffroy. Can you tell us about this great man and why everybody in Europe flocks to go study with him? How was your experience?
It was a big experience. Big experience, and also a lot of inspiration, or not inspiration, but path to. He was not showing one path. He was just, okay, there's everything possible there, and there, and that was actually very. That's also why the class in Lyon is very open to all this theatrical and dance interdisciplinary project, because he's very he has a wide vision, and he also worked with lots of composer and stage director and everything, and lots of projects. So he really helps us to to blow everything away, and that's also how I came out with working with dance, with theater and everything. And a lot of people in Lyon also follow this kind of stuff.
But he also is a big Bach proponent. He played a lot of Bach, right? He has a lot of recordings, and so do you guys. I mean, your trio has recorded and performs a lot. So it's not just pushing forward. He's very much rooted in the tradition. But can you tell us about your approach to playing Bach? I thought that it was really interesting that the three of you have specific parts. So you always play the soprano, and then there's someone always, I don't know who was it that always plays bass. Was it Paul or Nicola?
Paul is playing bass.
And then there's the middle part. Can you tell us about that approach? I have not heard percussionists do that consistently like you guys do.
About the Bach, so yeah, we just we actually like in the Bach or in everything we play as a trio, when we transcribe stuff to to keep in the, it's not the range, the tessiture.
Voices? Oh, tessitura.
Tessitura. Yeah. It's not about this. It's about the chamber music role you have. So if you're the bass, that's very easy to explain with Bach. If you're the bass player in Bach, then you would be the cellist, and you would give the tempo or keep the, that's really a specific role. And if you're just the soloist with the upper line, then you're more sensitive and more taking time, taking breath and everything. So it's very different roles. And for example, it's not only because they don't play the instrument, the same instrument, that the cellist is not taking the space of the violinist. It's just that in the ensemble they take some responsibility and different responsibility. So we wanted to keep that in the group, and so we always do that, even with other transcription or even new works that we commission. If the guy is open with that, then we try to stick with this. But Paul sometimes goes in the high register, and I would go in the low, but it's just the way you consider yourself in the group. Yeah. And about playing Bach, though I'm doing lots of music theater and everything, and actually Jean too. It's very funny when you do theatrical music or everything. Then when you come back to the instruments, it's not like you didn't work for days and you're like, oh shit, I can't play. It's more like you learn something somewhere that you're bringing back into the instrument. So it's really when you still have to work a little bit because still it's different technique. But for the personality, it's very good actually. You bring yourself back to the instrument. I don't know if it's clear.
Yeah. So everything informs each other and feeds each other, and they're not separate, isolated events. Yeah, that's really cool.
I see that you're writing, but I can't see where it is.
Gotta click down.
It's all just planning and.
Okay.
Jason tend to go off the rails, and
I thought I might be.
Yeah, Ben might have gone off the rails a little bit there. Ben should probably apologize for the things.
No, I apologize for nothing. Well, Alexandre, while we have a moment here, I had a question for you. Igor Stravinsky wrote a piece with a French title, and Casey and I have debated many times: is the Stravinsky piece Histoire or l'Histoire?
Wait, is the debate is the debate how you say it, or
what is the accurate title of the piece? Not the pronunciation would follow, but what is the actual title of the piece?
Written.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think it would be.
Is the L there or not?
I think so. Yeah. l'histoire du sol.
Ah,
Yeah, otherwise it would be like a story of a guy instead of
we'll
the
put
story of.
one tick in
Well,
the box.
exactly.
There's no L. Bill Kraft said there's no L. He worked with Stravinsky. So Casey's
well, there's a long chronology of this debate, and it's had many forms and many transitions, and it's the goalposts have been moved. But yes, you're definitely right. The L belongs.
no.
But also, he's not French, so maybe he made a mistake and he just said Histoire du soldat, though it should be l'histoire du soldat.
I actually looked it up. So it's the L, whether it's le or lay, is a gender specific, and if you're not sure the gender, it's just L. In which case, it's the history. It's not gender specific, so it would just be a L. I don't know what
said.
helped me.
Alexander's face looked like you were wrong. Whatever you just said.
No, I was, considering which grammar stuff what it is, because no, I don't think that's when you don't know the gender. It's just when there is a H. I think.
Okay, so the specific rule, I went and found it. It is L in front of a vowel or an H specifically.
Yeah, I would say that.
Ha, Ben. Go
so
home, Ben.
Moving on. So Alexander, we usually have Carly Vigna with us as one of our co-hosts. And Carly unfortunately couldn't make it today, but she sent a few questions. Carly said, congratulations on your successes in international competitions, Trump, Geneva International Competition, Marim Competition in Cannes. And she asked, how do you think performing in competitions has influenced you as a performer?
As a performer, you mean? I should close this because I think it's...
No, leave it open. You might need something, some key information.
Okay. Well, I think it helps in the way you have to really, in preparing the competition, you have to really focus on what you want to play, and not how you play, but what you want to play, and so that makes you already take a step in your what will be your career after, because then you have to find a path, like to play some particular stuff, and I mean, not playing what everyone else is playing. It's not you're going to play the same thing, but better. You have to find your way, and then in the competition you already have to do this. And so the process before you do the competition is probably the most interesting. Then the competition itself, it's more like a performance, like the process, I think, is more interesting than the competition itself. And then afterwards, it's just like you're going on with what you started with that. So, and technically, it also helps you, like Trump competition, for example, helps a lot with finding concerts or opportunities to play or to share stuff with other musicians. And but it's also I've spoke that with them, and it's also depending on the profile of the winner, because sometimes some winners are very easy to sell for venues or everything, and some others are more difficult because it's not that they play less good, it's just like the programmer is not interested into that field is in. So I don't know, if he's playing only a xylophone, then it might not be easy to sell. Then if you're playing body percussion, then everyone say, hey, it's so cool. I'm not saying xylophone is not cool, but probably less easy to sell. Yeah.
Right.
So, do they make programming suggestions to you? If they, you win, they see you and they're like, 80% of this is great, but if you could consider adding something like this in your program, that would really help us sell you and book you.
Yeah, they will always ask me to play again the ball piece, and that was becoming to be a bit pain in the ass. But no, actually, I was more the one who said, who was saying, okay, I could play this. Sometimes they just were inviting for a particular event, so it was for a piece or for a program that the programmer wanted. So you just send the program, but otherwise you choose the program, and then it's you become known for what you do. So the people call you to do what you do. Yeah, there's lots of "do" in that sentence, but yeah.
Good.
There's a question on Facebook from one of my students, Josh Cummings. He asks along these same lines related to competitions. He wants to know if you think competitions promote artistic growth, and do you think, what role do they play? Sorry, where the heck is it? I lost it. Yeah, do competitions promote artistic growth in percussion music as a medium, or are they restrictive to artistic expression? I think what he's getting at is, do you think competitions are healthy? You know, we've had that discussion before. There's that
Bartok quote
right.
that always comes along with this question of like competitions are for horses, not artists or something. But there's also the Bartok competition. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, out of there's competition and competition actually. I think you can feel like when you see the program and the jury, then you know if you have to go there or not, because you can feel how the ambience and the aim of the competition will be like. So you can really see some competition are there to sell the jury, not the it's more politic than good for the participant. Yes. Trump, for example, it's actually they really try to make it comfortable for the participant, like they would stay for the whole festival. They arrange everything, like the tickets, the staying. So it's not it's just a matter of concentrating on your competition, and then if you don't pass one round, then you have the whole festival. You can go to see the other, but there's many concerts and many stuff to happen, and that's actually more something where you will meet a lot of good people, good percussion player that you will meet again in the years to come. So it's very nice event, even if you don't win it. I did it actually one time in 2010, and I didn't pass the first round, and I was there for 2 weeks, and that time I learned way more than the time I won, because the time I won I just was practicing and playing, so I didn't learn anything. But some competition, you can just look at the program, the jury, and you're like, okay, I'm not going there, because it's just you know what is going to happen, and
It's cool you say that. The way you did, because I think without exception, every big competition winner we've talked to on the show has spoken about competitions in a very positive light, like this way. Like, it's not just about winning that prize. And I think it was Alice Pan talked about you can't just think like, oh, I'm going to do this one competition and it's going to be this like one big boom major event. It's like, no, you're going to do tons of competitions and you're going to keep doing them, and it's just going to be part of your artistic growth and career. So yeah, plan on doing many, not just this one,
Yeah, I remember recently Garrett Mendelow, who was another, I think he was maybe a second prize winner at Trump or something like that. Garrett, I think, did his last competition, and I think he said he didn't make it past the first round, and he had already decided that would be his last. But he wrote a very nice, like, sort of overview of his like impressions from competitions, and yeah, it's like the same sort of thing, like how much he learned just from the process of it. And it's, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, winning is nice, and that's the goal, but it's not exclusively about that, and growth as a player and new opportunities.
Yeah, good players consistently have that perspective,
Yeah, but then just backing up a step to, I think it was Ksenia asked the question of, after you win, when they're trying to promote your concerts, do they ask you to play certain repertoire? Do they tell you to play certain repertoire, etc.? And I know at University of Illinois, where I did my master's degree, they have what's called the Cranert Artist Debut Competition. It's a school-wide thing. in the Cranor Performing Arts Center there, and basically it's a solo recital competition. And I think there were only maybe one or two percussionists to ever win it, but one of them was maybe 10 years before I was there, something like that. And Professor Mersch said that he won the competition playing Xenakis and the likes. And the competition committee kind of said, okay, fantastic. Like, we're so happy that you're our winner. But for the donors concert, it's full of, gray-haired old ladies. We can't have you scaring them away with Xenakis. And I think you might have played some Keiko Abe also, but they said, could you maybe, play some more audience-friendly works? And Professor Mersch said, no, he can't. That's what he won the competition with. That's his wheelhouse. That's his repertoire. That's what he's going to perform. And then the interesting thing is that after the performance, apparently all the gray-haired old ladies said how much they loved it.
Yeah.
So I think there is something to be said for sticking with your guns. And there's always this debate, and I think I know which side of the debate that stands on, but good music performed well, even contemporary avant-garde music performed well, is compelling. And I don't think you have to know a thing about Stockhausen, but when you watch Steve Schick perform Stockhausen, it's entrancing. It's transformative and it's magical. And if I was to watch, I'll be self-deprecating, me perform Stockhausen, I don't think I would have the same experience. It's just not my wheelhouse, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that finding your wheelhouse and sticking to your guns, yeah, is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's in between both, because it's very good to like for this no, you have to play stuff for music for people with gray hair. Then it's good to stick on something, an aesthetic, something you want to promote, to defend. But also you have to consider the place you're playing and the audience you're playing for and everything, because sometimes you can really find yourself in a tricky situation where the art can't happen because it's the audience is not responsive to this. So for example, I did a concert in Russia with the bow piece and convulsion and all these, also some not theatrical but a little bit contemporary pieces, and it was very, very classical. Like the guy before was playing Mozart flute concerto, and then the audience was really not responsive at all. Like half of the audience was so happy, and half of the audience was really not even clapping and looking at me. So you really have to or either you might also say, okay, I'm not going to play there. But if you go to play there, then you have to consider that you have to catch the audience and then bring them to you, and then you can give a message. But if you go straight with something they won't be able to listen, then you lose your goal, I think.
Well, I mean, I have a million more questions, but I guess I want to ask you, most of all, where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? What would you ideally like to do if no money was an obstacle? What is your vision for your music career?
This is a good question. I don't know. I'm just kind of the guy who... Sorry. Yeah.
She plans more than most of us, it sounds like.
I don't know. I think I can't answer that question. I think it's more I enjoy the moment with the project. I choose which project I want to do and where I want to go. But I'm not the kind of guy who is able to have a vision for like 5 or 10 years. Really not.
Oh, that's such a French answer.
Oh no, there's many French people who can do that, but I'm not very good
German,
at it.
plan, French, yeah. Well,
we'll see.
Well, it's a sign of people that love what they do, I think.
Yeah.
It's because you could ask, the same question. It's like, what would you do with $1 million? And you ask that to someone who really loves what they do. They basically say, oh, I'd do the same thing, but try to like be a little more comfortable doing it, Yeah. Sorry, Ben.
Oh, no, no. Well, Casey, I was actually going to say we're getting on toward the end of the episode here, and I believe you have a history segment to share with us today.
Sure, I found a little history, the things that happened on our release date, which, if you're listening to this on the Thursday that it comes out, is December 26th. And a couple things happened, two musical releases, one from George Gershwin. His musical Of Thee I Sing opened at the Music Box Theater in New York City. This was in 1931, and it becomes the first American musical to be awarded a Pulitzer Prize. And this other one, released in 1946, I dug into, is Duke Ellington's, they call it A Play with Music, which I think we just call a musical now. But Beggar's Holiday, if you're familiar with that, opens in New York in the Broadway Theater. It was originally titled Twilight Alley, but because of horrendous reviews, they repackage it, rebrand it. They do a bunch of swap outs with directors and writers and bring in what they call a script doctor, famous person, I think George Abbott, I think is the name. And after that, they shorten a bunch of pieces, rewrite a bunch of stuff, and rename it Beggar's Holiday, and it gets 111 performances. So you might know a little bit about this musical, but if you're like me, you did not. So here's a couple of fun facts. It's a retelling of John Gay's The Beggar's Opera, which you've probably heard of from 1728. There's also Bertolt Brecht's Threepenny Opera, which is the one I had heard of all of these, which is, I think that's 1928, which is also a retelling of John Gay's The Beggar's Opera. But Beggar's Holiday and Threepenny Opera are not related, other than that they're both a retelling of The Beggar's Opera. I know that was like a lot of titles. So again, the original title was Twilight Alley, and this challenged the status quo using black actors in leading parts and white actors in comical supporting roles. Usually the opposite was the case. The show was trouble-free in Boston, but in New York it was picketed. People objected to the interracial couple at the center of the story when character Drake, a white man, kissed Mildred Smith, a black woman, on stage. People in the New York audience, I guess, walked out. So although mixed-race casts were common on Broadway by the 1940s, African-American and white performers tended to be assigned different roles. Like I said, they tended to be switched. African-American performers tended to play roles mostly lowbrow, comic characters, while white performers could be cast in highbrow parts. But in the Beggar's Holiday, there is no discernible difference between African-American and white roles. As Richard Dyer writes in Baltimore's magazine publication Afro-American, quote, "You need to go no further for proof that colored actors and actresses, if given roles on par with whites without racial identification, can handle them just as capably and effectively than in the gay and tuneful modern version of Beggar's Holiday." So it's just cool, like another Duke Ellington performance or story that has some like huge progress attached to it. So if you take away one thing from it, Beggar's Holiday has the first interracial kiss on stage, if you want to take one little tidbit away from that. Also, in 1865, the coffee percolator was created. And I have nothing to add to that. I just found it.
Well,
Amen.
Have you ever had a percolator? Did you ever percolate coffee?
Yeah, of course.
Well, it's very easy to screw up, I think. I had a percolator in Boston, and I'd always burn my coffee.
Casey, since you mentioned Duke Ellington, one of my favorite books is the Gary Burton biography, which is called, I just had the title. What's it called? Oh, geez.
Cassandra, why are you looking at me like that? It's so easy to burn percolator coffee. You put it on there 30 seconds too long, and it's...
I thought it was idiot-proof, but...
You have to... So for our young audiences, the only way you know your percolator is done is when you see the coffee shooting up in the little clear indicator. And if you don't see that because you're doing your email or practicing or something, in like the very likely case, you won't see it, your coffee's going to be burnt.
So anyway, the Gary Burton biography, I just found the title. It's called Learning to Listen. And Gary Burton in this book, actually, I think there's a whole chapter called The Duke and I, or The Duke and Me, something like that. But he talks about Duke Ellington, and Duke Ellington, if anyone's unfamiliar, was sexuality was sort of ambiguous. He never married. His longtime, very close friend that was an arranger who was named Billy Strayhorn was gay, and Duke Ellington never came out. I was just going to read a little bit of the Gary Burton book.
Oh.
He says, if Duke wasn't gay, he was uncommonly gay-friendly, a rare attribute during his era. He also maintained a highly unusual relationship with Billy Strayhorn, his longtime writing partner, who was openly gay, very prominent in Harlem society as well as the gay community, and unabashed about his 2 long-term relationships. All of this was quite uncommon at the time, too. Their arrangement was both mysterious and very personal. For instance, Strayhorn didn't draw a salary like the other musicians, but simply sent the bills for whatever he needed to Duke. And I've always wondered why Duke, with so many others always occupying his attention, went out of his way to befriend a young jazz/rock musician, Gary Burton, even to the point of inviting me to an important recording session. Maybe he saw something in my orientation that I didn't yet recognize in myself. It's too bad he didn't live to see all the changes that have come about in the music world as well as society at large. I'm proud to have known him, even in a casual way, and his music will always influence me. I didn't attend the birth of jazz, but I was lucky enough to know quite a few of the pioneers, such as Duke, firsthand. I think I came along at just the right time to connect with those who invented the music, as well as take part in the transition to follow when my generation came into its own.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, yeah.
Wow,
and,
thanks, Ben. I did not know any of that.
Yeah, and Duke Ellington, and I'm trying to remember, there's another, I teach in my music appreciation class, another famous early jazz musician who I'm blanking on.
Michael Jackson.
I can see his face in my head. Salt Peanuts. Weird trumpet. What's Dizzy Gillespie? That's who it was.
Not Michael Jackson.
Did like big tours of the world promoting American culture and jazz music, and I think that Mio actually saw a performance of jazz when they went through Paris, or maybe Mio saw it in New York. But Mio went back to write a piece, and he had seen a drum set, but didn't know what a drum set was, and so he went to write for a drum set. Yeah. And so if you know the piece Creation du Monde, he's like describing a drum set like, long, narrow drum, obviously meaning a tom-tom, or bass drum activated with foot pedal, or, cymbal attachment on bass drum. Like, it's a drum set, or, early drum set. But
So when we played that at Boston Conservatory, I was such a good little student, and I built the era correct to Mio's specification drum set. And it took me forever, and I even built the contraption with the foot pedal that hits the little splash cymbal, and the splash cymbal is mounted to the bass drum. And I was really proud of it. I did research to make sure it was correct. It's PAS articles, blah, 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 blah. And I bring it all out for rehearsal, and our conductor literally comes up to me, and she goes like, "What the hell is all that?" "No, it's for drum set."
Yeah,
so I pulled out our Yamaha stage rocker kit, and he was that's it. And the kick's like
those acrylic John Bonham drums, the see-through orange ones. That's no.
Right. I was pissed though. The dude was wrong. Like, no, it's for drum set. I'm still mad about it. Hey, how about another Facebook question or so?
Go.
So we have a question from Facebook, and this is from Daniel Bulba. And he wants to know, who were your biggest influences and what made you go into composing and performing in this musical theater kind of style? Within all the choreographers you've worked with, who touched you the most?
I don't know. I think it's lots of people and lots of influences, but not really one... As I said, also in Lyon, there was that kind of surrounding that everyone would do interdisciplinary stuff. Not everyone, but a lot of people would do that kind of things. And so that's how I started also to do stuff with dance, stuff with theater. Also at that time, I started to work with my best friend now, Mathieu Benigno, which is the guy with who I wrote the bow piece and other pieces, and that guy was really is amazing theater player. Like he's really very credible, and so he wanted to bring that aspect into percussion, and also a lot of funny things, because he's the kind of guy who likes to do funny, crazy thing, even if it's on stage and it should be classic and everything. So that's the time I started, and I don't know if there is really an influence, except the conservatory in Lyon, probably, yeah, with Jean Geoffroy. Then choreographer, at that time I did the show with the Arcosme Company, so that was with Thomas Guéry and choreographer, and Camille Rocailleux, which is composer. And yeah, we did that was a big influence at that time, because we did it 100 times, this show. So in all over the world. So that was kind of really good to do, to improve your dance stuff and your theatrical stuff. But I think there's many people that influence you, but I didn't have one who said, that guy is the one.
I'm going to ask just for a friend. Did anyone ever use Labanotation for any of this choreography you've ever seen?
Some people with who I wrote, I worked with, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I've mentioned this on the show before, but Kyle Maxwell Doherty wrote his dissertation on these graphic notation pieces like Thierry de Mey's music and Mark Applebaum's Aphasia and one of my pieces, and he translated a lot of them, transcribed them, I guess is the word, to this dance notation called Laban notation, and demonstrated that, we have all these pieces, but we have no unified notation amongst musicians, but there has been this notation amongst dancers for a long time called Laban notation. So I thought I would ask.
Yeah, but I think also it's because we're percussionists and we are used to have different notation. If you change setup and
Right.
change pieces, then you change notation. And there is still things that you recognize in the writing, though I think Laban is very different than a musical notation. So I think we're more comfortable with that, and that's why we write with musical notation that we reinvent all the time. It's because we're used to that, and to learn a new language in every piece, I think.
I agree, and I guess his point is that, well, if we were to stick with one language, we might be able to not have to relearn a new one every time, and we could save ourselves a step, and we could collaborate with dancers easier, etc. It's funny because it's one of those things where I said, wow, that's so cool, you're right, that's a really cool idea, but I'm not going to take the time to learn it. But I think your response, I had the same response, but it is cool. Like, my hat's off to him for like showing it's possible, and for doing a piece so complex as like Mark Applebaum's Aphasia in a whole other like language. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but for example, I think it's also who you address the piece to. If you want some dancer to play your piece, then you wouldn't have wrote your piece musically, but you wrote it musically. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Same, yeah.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't expect a dancer to read your language. Yeah, I see. Yeah, good point. Senya, I think you have a little something.
Yeah, but I was just going to say theatrical pieces can be performed by other instrumentalists or vocalists as well. It's not just limited to percussionists. It's just whether they're encouraged to do so. So that would help them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I don't know if that would help them, because then they have to learn Laban, and Laban is very different. And yeah,
but it would help them to stop playing like
boring etudes.
Yeah, stop playing like Haydn, and that would help.
Seriously. Okay, I had one more question, and that's Alexandre, you've taught at the Royal Conservatory of The Hague and then at the French National Conservatory of Music in Lyon. And so you've had students, and I'm assuming that you've done a lot of chamber music as well. So what would your advice be, given that your trio is so successful, for young chamber ensembles who want to establish themselves? How would you advise them to go about creating a career? So say they want to tour or get management or record an album. What would your advice to them be?
I would advise to be to have a real project, real something that is very visible and not visible, understandable, like that everyone knows where they are and what they are playing.
Like defined.
Yeah, like either the aesthetic or the program of the kind of repertoire or because everything comes after this. If it's just a good player, then it's just a good name, and that's comes in the nature. Like there's many good players now. Everyone is playing good, but if for example, if you do back on marimba, 3 marimbas and like this, then it's very recognizable. And then that's actually when we found an agent that was worked for us afterward, because she thought she called us. She said, "Okay, I want to take care of that because it's very. I think it can work. I think I can sell that to everywhere and everything." And so the audience, all the venues also were very attracted because of the fact that it's recognizable and that you understand what is going to be played. But if there is like one of the best ensemble, they play so good together, but they play music theater, they play whatever contemporary Japanese, American, everything, and that there's no aesthetic and no. I mean, you can play all of this, but then you have to find something that goes through, that's a theme or something to attract the. Yeah, I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, no. So there has to be some sort of a common thread. There has to be some sort of aesthetic or ethic or some story behind it, something that unifies everything. You can't just play standard repertoire and be good. That's not enough.
Actually, yeah, it's imagine if you have a venue, if you hire a concert, then someone is proposing you a project with about Russian music or whatever, or Russian influence and everything. Then you think, okay, if I take that, either there is a piano, either there is I don't know, a violin or a percussion, or then anyway the audience will come because they might like the way it sell the Russian music. If you just put one pianist, one percussion player, and one violin, then who is going to come if there's no meaning of the concert? Yeah. Sorry, it's kind of difficult to explain stuff.
No. It's perfectly understandable. It makes sense. Thank you. So I wanted to ask you about the contemporary music scene and art scene in France in general. France has a very specific kind of flavor. And French performers do, obviously, since any time that you're on stage, people think that you're very elegant and so on. But can you tell us a bit more? Because it is sort of, in some ways, it is not so much isolated, but you guys seem self-sufficient. Like there's so much going on that you don't have to try to reach out too much. So can you tell us a bit what's popular nowadays? What's going on?
What's the popular thing now in France?
In contemporary music, yeah.
I'd say what is definitely popular is that interdisciplinary stuff. Not necessarily theatrical music, but to mix different arts. Also, I think it comes because arts in France is very supported by a state, region, everything. So they want to touch more people, not only the well-educated people from the good suburb, but to spread that to all people. Mm-hmm. An interdisciplinary project is easier to catch a lot of people without selling, just doing fun music or easy listening music. It's just if you put a bit of dance, a bit of theatrical, a bit of music, then you will definitely attract a lot of the attention of the audience. And I think that's also why even in contemporary scene there's now this stuff, and also because the classical concert is kind of dying. I think the way you just you just come, you play your first piece, you go, the second piece, 5 minutes, you go. Then this is kind of dying. So we're always trying to make it a little bit different in either in the pieces we play, either in the way we run the whole show. So to make a line, I think that's probably what's the most
Trendy.
fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. La mode à Paris.
Okay, I have last one and then then I'll stop.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that the French government helps the arts and wants to support the arts. Can you explain how that works and just how does that impact you and so on?
That impacted a lot. Yeah, sorry, I was just reading because I don't read all the time. Yeah, that impacts a lot actually, because you can really choose what you want to do, and what you don't have to work for a living, and you just have to be efficient in your work and do a lot of work in your field, but you don't have to take a alimentary job, like either, or even if you don't want to teach, you don't have to teach. You can really just focus on what you want to play, and give energy to that, because we have lots of every step of the culture is helped by either government, everything. Like the artist itself is supported by the artist status we have. The group, the ensemble can be supported by the state, everything. The venue is supported. Everything is supported. So if the audience comes to a concert with at the Orchestre de Paris, the best conductor, best soloist, and everything, then you can have a seat for 20 euros, or at Opéra Bastille you can have a bad seat for 5 euros. So it's very they want to attract a lot of people, and so they support everything, and I think that's a good system.
That's a very good system. So they support you financially so that you can actually live and then just focus on your projects, on what you want to do.
Yeah, you have to do like a certain amount of gigs a year. That would be 54 gigs per year, or kind of. It's more complicated than that. But then every time you don't play, every day you don't play, the government pays you unemployment stuff. So that's. But if you don't make this amount of gigs, then you don't have the stages. So you still have to play. But you can choose at a certain level. You can choose the project you want, and you don't have to take everything because you want to live and pay your flat, for example.
Not anyone can do this, right? Like you have to be qualified, or you have to be selected.
No, you have to. It's just the employer who pays in different ways than normal pay, but anyone can do it.
Wow.
And it's not only for music, it's music, every live art. So that would be dance, circus, everything, the technicians, also the sound engineer, the lighting technician, every stuff related to live art is can have this. And so you can be really not a very, very good artist and have this status. It's just
Wow.
if you work enough, then you have it, and then it's good.
Very cool. Well, it's clear. It's clearly not a handout. You said 54 performances a year. That's a lot.
Actually, that's why it's more complicated. You can if the rehearsal is paid, then it counts. The fact is, when you get paid in that status, you give half. The employer gives half more of the money to the government to support the status. So if you get 200 euros for one concert, then the employer gives 400 euros. Yeah.
Wow.
So pay
it's-
taxes on top of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if he does the same for 3 years or so and one concert, then you have 4 gigs already. Yeah, so that's kind of tricky.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. So great to have you, everybody. I'm going to close out because Ben had to run. But yeah, thanks so much, Ksenia, and thanks to Ben for hosting. And so nice to meet you and finally talk to you, Alexander. This is Alexandre Esperet, everybody. So yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool. All right, everybody. We'll catch you on 210. Take care.